What's up, Cougs? I'm Adrian Romero, back at it for IUH News. Still working from home and still bringing that up-to-date info to help keep y'all in the loop. The future of engineering and construction is happening now at the University of Houston in the form of a breakthrough technology called Smart Cement. I got a chance to talk with UH alum Ody De La Paz earlier in the week about Smart Cement and the startup company Sensytec that hopes to bring the talking cement worldwide. Watch this.
Smart cement. Can you give us a general idea of what the smart cement is and what the other technology you're working with and what solutions it brings to problems that the world faces today?
Yeah, for sure. So there's one specific issue when it comes to construction, and if you go to any construction site today, there's what they call the materials technician that's on site, and for every 10 trucks of concrete that's out there. They actually have to do a test or take samples of that concrete that's being placed. So it's a very old school, it's over like 100-year-old standard that's been in place, and really the world uses this standard, the entire world in construction. And it's a standard that everybody's used to. It's fairly inexpensive, but there are a lot of downfalls to this, and a lot of headaches, specifically that. And one of the main two things is basically it's labor intensive and really inaccurate on the data that you get, because you're taking a sample from a concrete that's placed out there, and then taking it to a lab and then it's cured over time in the lab. So you're comparing the lab result with a field environment, which is totally two different things. The curing rate is different. The temperature ranges vary. I mean, it's going to be a different thing. So with that being said, we want to be able to monitor actually what's happening in the field, right? We're not taking samples. We're not doing, it's not labor intensive, and it's pretty cheap to do as well. So, one sensor, like the sensors that we have here, actually here, but this sensor here is able to just tie it to the rebar, and let it get buried in the concrete structure. And so you can go with your phone and just monitor the status of concrete there. So it's super simple, super easy. Anyone can do it. Process, and at the end of the day, it's a lot less expensive than your conventional way of doing things, because you can now see problems that are going to happen earlier than you would have with your conventional materials testing ways of doing it. So it's a much cleaner, much faster, much more efficient process. At the end of the day, if I can give you, the results that you're looking for within 24 hours after placing the concrete, then I just saved you a lot of time on that project schedule, which is at the end of the day converts to a lot of money saved.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful thing, about using technology like this. And this is purely just for the construction phase of it. Now, if you're looking long term, so how can I monitor a concrete structure or building a bridge, after a flood, after an earthquake, after a really cold temperature, time or season, those environmental impacts affect, these structures over time. So it becomes much more important to have technology that we can install during the construction phase, which then can last you 40, 50 years, whatever the design life of that structure is going to be, to continuously monitor itself. That's the future that we're wanting to bring to the construction world and to the oil and gas world as well, is how can we make a structure itself like a sensor? How can we give it a brain that it can communicate with us, right? And be able to tell you, hey, I have a crack in this area that needs attention, or there's a stress level in this area that needs attention. Those are areas or things that we can now do today. And that seems really unrealistic, but certainly we can do that. And that's the really cool thing about what we're bringing to the table, I think.
But before we get more in depth with smart cement, how you got into it. I understand you consider yourself a serial entrepreneur, starting your journey all the way back at 15 years old, finding enough success to be able to put yourself through college. Has business always come natural to you, man, or is there a learning curve somewhere along the way?
There's definitely learning curves throughout my life, I think, and a lot of maybe I think everybody's life. I think everyone has, you don't necessarily have to have a trait to be an entrepreneur, but I think in someone's mindset, they've experienced some type of, way of making money for themselves or making a living from not having to work a day-to-day job, but and it can start early, it can start later. There's many of examples of people in their 40s, 50s, 60s starting a business and, being very successful. But for me, I started at a very young age. My family has their own, car business. And it started at that point, I would think, seeing, my father flip cars and, make a good living, doing that. And I kind of got up there and did the same thing and paid for college that way. It's a pretty significant way of learning how to do things. So I think, it started very young for me. And I think, it's always good to have that type of mentality and growing up, selling watermelons, growing up selling anything, ice cream. I mean, it's things, little things like that kind of help you along the way, especially at this time, because you're just kind of like, you're not afraid to do it. A lot of people are afraid maybe of rejection, are afraid of doing these things because it kind of gets them out of their comfort zone. But I think that I was kind of forced to get out of that comfort zone earlier on, that's just the way my life was structured, I guess.
So what was it like becoming a part of the UH, the Sylvia Melvin Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, which has been nationally ranked by the Princeton Review as a top 10 undergrad entrepreneurship program since 2007. And, as of this year, 2020, it's back at #1 on the list. What was that like?
It seems like we're always fighting for that, either second or first. But I think it changed the course of my life, that's for sure. I was thinking, after college, I was gonna, go find either a good job or I was gonna go back into the family business. It came down to two options, right? But then whenever I got a part of this IP program and we started working with different technical intellectual properties from UH, it kind of opened my mind to different options and gave me a different perspective in life, really. And I think that program really cultivates both personal and business in a really good way, that you kind of go out and really explore really who you really are. I think that's a huge benefit, especially for 19, 20, 21-year-olds that are going out fresh out of college, because at that age you're thinking everything's kumbaya, right? But it ain't that way.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not.
It ain't that way. So it gave you a good perspective, that's for sure, earlier, of really how business, if you really want to get into the game of business, how it really is. We did a bunch of competitions at U of H, and that we had the opportunity to go to different states and compete with other schools or other startups, and that really also helped me a lot personally to not be stage fright or be able to present in front of hundreds, thousands of people, and that's a skill that is learned through trial and error. It helped me out definitely a lot. I mean, you can speak to my mentors and my classmates or whoever you want in that program, and they can tell you the same thing, that it really changes the course of your life for a good way.
Awesome, man. So, and it's within this Wolf Center that you were first introduced to the smart cement technology, which is also, like you said, it's within the family, created by a UH professor. Could you tell us about what the process was like from getting the tech to working with a team that included, you know, all still keeping it within the family. You have your fellow co-founder and now chief technology advisor. Man, I hope I don't butcher his name, man. What are the steps between, you know, getting the tech and, you know, meeting the team, getting introduced to everyone, to, you know, research if it has any possible commercial value?
Yeah, so it starts, I think I believe the summer of coming up your second semester, because usually you go in the spring, which is your first semester, and then the summer is when you kind of get introduced to the different IPs that you're going to be working on for the fall semester, and that's where, you know, you choose, or you're given an IP, and the basics of that is to take a technical idea and then basically build a business model or a business plan around that specific idea to see if there's any commercial potential. So you have a team of 5 people within the same WC program. A team of 5, all business students, and they take this idea and see if they create a business plan to pitch everything, and then basically do a market analysis on where that specific technology is, and if there's any potential. Or at the end of the fall semester, there's a competition basically amongst your other peers. So that's kind of how it comes about. But the goal is to see if there's any market potential. And if there is, great, you can go on to the next semester, which is your final semester in the program, go do business competitions and compete for money. So we did very well doing that. You know, and at the end of the day, you know, you can license a technology like that, commercialize it yourself or with your team, and basically a startup grows from there. So that's kind of how it works.
Before all that, y'all kind of, I mean, obviously, like, Sensytec, the Smart Cement has some commercial value. Y'all saw that. Y'all gave Sensytec life by giving it a name while in the group. Can you talk about, like, you know, besides that final competition between you and your peers, what was the process like of, you know, like, getting into those other competitions where you said you can win like some big prizes that could definitely help y'all further along?
Yeah, so that was at the end of the semester, which was the spring, right when you're about to usually graduate from college. But there's many competitions, and you can search them up on Google them. I mean, you have the Baylor competition, you have the Rice competition. Rice is one of the biggest ones. You have a bunch of them, really. Most universities have their own competition. That's just kind of how it works. And there's prizes that vary between, you know, $1,000 to, you know, $50,000, $100,000. I mean, there's a lot of money out there for good ideas. So, you know, we had to apply for those type of competitions, and of course, you have to put a video, you have to do things like that, you know, do an application. It's a very tedious process, can be, but you know, once you're chosen, you can, you know, you go to the competition and you do pitches. You know, you pitch in front of investors, you pitch in front of industry experts, you pitch in front of, you know, corporate entity people in corporate that do this every day. So it's a real world experience, that's for sure. And then, you know, if you do well and you answer most questions good, then, you know, you usually are either, you know, one of the top ones to win. So we learned that very early on how to do that. We had a lot of practice, because it takes a lot of practice to do that. So that's kind of the process of where it leads to get that funding. Once you get that funding, you know, you can start a company, you know, and use that funding to go to do research, or use that funding to, you know, build your product, whatever you want to do with it. Up to you. You know?
Yeah, you can't do anything without the funding, right? That's
Well,
for
you
sure.
can.
Oh, really?
I've done it.
True,
You know?
man. Start up from the ground up.
You know, you can. It just depends on what it is. So.
Well, that's awesome that y'all were able to pitch, and, you know, I think I read that it was like y'all entered in 8 competitions at first, and y'all won 5 out of the 8.
Yeah.
And talk to me about that one competition y'all won 10K at.
That was the San Diego competition. That was our very first one, actually. Which
Oh,
was
really?
crazy.
Wow.
That was our very first, besides the UH one, but our very first kind of live competition. That was, I
Hmm.
think it was in San Diego. So that was a pretty cool competition. You know, it was, I think it was a 2 day event, where we kind of, you do the preliminaries, and then once you pass that, then next day is the finals, right? So it was great companies there. There's still companies that I still talk to today, the founders that are still going, similar to us. There's some companies, of course, that don't exist anymore. It's just, life of the beast. Um, so it's just, that was a pretty cool competition. And you can look it up online, and you can see some of our colleagues there
Oh,
pitching.
we can actually watch your pitch?
I think it's online. If you go to
Oh,
San Diego
wow.
University's, I think if you go to San Diego University's website, I'm not sure if they
Hmm.
still have it up, but it was a while back. It was 2016, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they probably don't have
Man,
it up anymore.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Seeing a young Odie.
yeah.
But as
So
far as your company goes, and the competitions, you've kind of kept that tight knit group with you and Maddie and
yeah,
Professor Vipulanandan
yeah, people on them.
Vipulanandan since the beginning, right? So what was it
Yeah.
like growing the business? Staying with that tight family. Uh, wh- just can you name some of your like favorite experiences? From like visiting Norway for about 3 months to just day to day activities, hanging out with them,
And
growing
just
with
like
them.
my entire life, man. That's good. You do your research. That's good. But it's been a good ride. For us, it kind of has to come naturally. It doesn't just come, like when you want it to.
Mm,
So I think that in the beginning process, of course, you gotta meet, you gotta know each other, you gotta work with each other often. We've done many things before we went to Norway. Like a couple months before that, we were part of another program with the National Science Foundation that we had to go and uh, what basically is called ICOR. It's a
mm,
customer discovery process where you go and travel wherever you want to travel to go meet customers, and it's all funded by the National Science Foundation. And you have to report back, what your findings were and things like that. And there's a teaching team around that specific program. I think that's where we connected a lot, me and my co-founder, more deep. And that's just because we traveled together. We slept, in the same hotel. It just it becomes more of a brotherhood at that point than anything than just a working relationship.
yes, sir.
Um, and similarly with Professor Vipu, he's been a great professor. I mean, he's very well known around the city and around the world, for his research. We take a lot of pride in his name, and we're taking on big responsibility for sure as a startup. So yeah, I mean, I think for us it's a good fit. We're growing our team, you know, this year as well.
Mm,
So that's the whole point of this journey, is to bring on great people, build a great team, and then build a great company. But it starts with the people that you bring on board. So we're very selective with who we bring on, or who we work with as well. So it has to start that way, because it can get very, very bad at the end of the day. I mean, you're seeing these other companies make the news, and we don't want to be a part of that. So
yeah, that's pretty smart, man. Exactly for that reason. You don't want anyone you don't fully trust and fully want a part of your team, and because they
exactly,
represent you, they represent the company, and I feel like that's a very smart way to go, man.
yeah,
And it takes a little bit longer, but for sure, definitely pays off.
it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's who you bring on that makes it successful. Because me myself or my co-founder are not going to be the ones, you know, doing everything, right?
Mm,
There has to be a team around it, and a lot of entrepreneurs put also, have to learn from that too. I started early on working with teams and stuff like that, and understanding how people react to different things, and understanding how they take on either negative, feedback, or even positive feedback, and those are all learning experiences. So you got to know who you're dealing with and how they deal with those issues, because it will happen. It's not You're not exempt from those things. So, as an as a CEO, as a founder, as a person that has done it before, at a smaller scale, but still, it's the same you know foundation that you need to start off with. So, yeah.
Right, right. And in the process of growing, I also read that phase one for Sensytec is completed back in 2019. Y'all secured a pilot project with Houston's Public Works Department. What's that all about? What's going on with that?
That was through. So we did a bunch of accelerators.
Mm,
We did one in Norway. We did two here in Houston specifically. And specifically with that one, I think it was the Ion Smart Cities Accelerator,
right.
um, where they connected us to their network within the city. And clearly, we live in a concrete jungle here in Houston. So it was a perfect fit for us to get involved with public works and test out our technology and use it. And whenever we rebuild these roads, it's a good way to understand the performance of that concrete. Making sure that us taxpayers are getting something that's worth it. So that's kind of where we are targeting towards our technology and public road projects. How do we open a critical road in a timely manner rather than you waiting a week, 2 weeks to open up a road? I mean, it causes so much congestion, traffic, and it's just a pain in the butt for some of us, right, that live around the areas that are in construction. So how can we speed that process up? How can we be more efficient? How can we save money for the city, which in return can save some money for the taxpayer? How can we build a much more efficient, much more sustainable infrastructure? So you see these roads that are cracked, or that are you have a bunch of bumps and stuff like that, and you mess up your car because of that, and things like that. So how can we mitigate that while we're building it, right? So that's some of the value we're trying to bring for the city of Houston.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are like secondary and like those are like effects that I wouldn't even really think of that come from a smart cement, like helping the flow of a city, and also just making sure that people like they don't feel every jolt in the road, which comes from having better technology implemented in better infrastructure. And I feel like for me personally, I would have never thought those would be effects of having a smart cement. But wow, that's awesome. And you know what? If y'all can fix the traffic problem, man, y'all if y'all can fix Houston's traffic problem, there's no way y'all not gonna be on top for sure. And,
little by little, you gotta start off with the baby steps.
Yeah, exactly, of course. And it's baby steps, of course. Phase one, you complete that. What is like you have phases for your company as far as like building your team, trying to get projects out there. What kind of encompass phase one, some highlights, and maybe what can we look forward to in phase two?
Yeah, so phase one is rolling out the technology locally. So here, Houston, and then kind of going towards the Texas region, so like Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, and capturing those big cities, and rolling out some of the technology there and some of the critical projects. So that's kind of where we're at now. With COVID, kind of slowed down a little bit, but we're starting to see a little pick up from here because construction really doesn't stop. So a lot of people are now picking that up, and then phase two is more nationally. So we're looking at regions that we're trying to focus on, like California, Florida, East Coast, like New York, those areas. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding up in the north in the coming years, because there was just a bill that was passed that got a lot of funding for these old bridges and roads and stuff like that. They're trying to now rebuild them because they're in the brink of collapse. That's going to happen around the U.S. for a long period of time because there's more bridges than engineers to inspect those bridges. Can we use technology to leverage technology like ours to meet that mandate of inspections and quality control, and that's what we provide. So it takes a lot of work. It's something new. So being able to convince people in that specific world of construction or oil and gas how to change, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of examples and a lot of projects, a lot of data to prove it. So that's why we're starting, little by little. So we're not, we're not comparing ourselves with other companies. So we're trying to take it for us, and we're trying to grow as fast as possible, however we can. So that's kind of where we're headed.
Of course, and like you said, you're trying to expand nationally, and I read that even globally. Hopefully, of course, that's the goal. Right now, y'all are at the UH Technology Bridge, correct? Still?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what's that been like? Going back to UH, being able to work there, have access to the labs and the equipment over there. What's that been like?
It's been good. I mean, we don't use much of the equipment, things like that. We try to avoid using that type of stuff, but we have an office space here that is dedicated for us. It's good to have really close communications with, the IP department or, the professor and also students, right? We're trying to bring on some more interns from U of H and, give back that way. They can learn from a startup or the experience with a startup that was born here at U of H. I think it's a good way to learn and to get some real experience. And not just have a daily task like your regular internships would be like. Here you're going to have responsibilities and data deadlines, and things that kind of get you out of your comfort zone, which is super important. I think that's where you grow a lot.
Keeping it real close to home. That's awesome how y'all do that. That's really interesting to me, and y'all are finding success with that. And I think that's awesome. With me being enrolled at UH, I find a lot of pride in that too, man. That's awesome how y'all are doing that.
Yeah, the only thing I would say on that too is, students that are there that are either doing their bachelor's or master's or PhD, not to be afraid of reaching out to companies that are small, because I think besides, take the pay out of the question, what's more valuable to you? Is it the pay, or is it, the learning experience you're going to get? That at the end of the day, that's an investment towards you. So there's some startups that can afford to pay you, whatever salary you're looking for, but don't underestimate that opportunity as well.
Awesome, man. I really like the ideas you brought up of learning from other people's experiences, learning from your own past experiences. Very, very interesting stuff we talked about today. Thank you so much for talking with me again, man. I appreciate it so much. And, of course, go Cougs. Stay safe, always. Be healthy, man. Hopefully see you around campus sometime when everything, gets back to some form of normalcy. I wish your business and your podcast the best of luck.
Awesome, man. Thank you for reaching out. And, for sure, whenever you're ready to meet, we can make that happen. Awesome,
man. You have a nice rest of your day. And I'll see you around, man.
All right. See you.
That's all I got for y'all today. Make sure to follow Coug TV on Insta and YouTube to keep up with more UH updates. I'm Adrian Romero. Thanks for watching at UH News.